Alright, so we've talked about the fact that you need to use every color from the color wheel in your painting, but we haven't talked about the fact yet that you also need to use a tint, a tone, and a shade of every color. Okay, so as I'm going about painting this, you all will have a checklist like this, and this lists all colors with their tint, tone, and shade. So you have red, red tint, red shade, red tone. Red orange tint, red orange shade, red orange tone. This checklist will help keep you on the right track, make sure that you get each and every color. Okay, so I'm going to do a little demonstrating for how to get started with your painting and how to make sure that you're getting those tint, tone, and shades in for every color. Okay, so I'm going to start with the background, and I've decided my background is going to be blue, and then the sky was going to transition from blue to orange. Okay, so that's what I'm going to work on first. You always want to start in the background of your painting and then work your way forward. The reason for that is then things that are in front of things in the background will look like they're more in front. For instance, if I painted this chicken first and then I was painting the sky and I got some blue sky over top of the chicken, that's going to look odd. Versus you got your chicken in front of your sky, it looks more normal. Okay, so I have my colors here. Have some blue to start with, and you need to use some of the regular color. So I'm going to do that right away. And skies usually get darker towards the top, so I'm going to use a little bit of this darker blue right towards the top. Starting with a little bit of a bigger brush, just to fill a little more space quickly. But I gotta be a little careful with my clouds, trying to go around those areas. Okay, I'm just gonna start there. Now I've used some blue, so when I get my checklist out, find where it says blue, before I even rinse my brush, just mark that with the blue. Okay, then I've proven that I've used it in my painting, put the same color right there in my checklist. Okay, now I also need a blue shade. I think I'm gonna do that right away. So I'm gonna get some of my blue and get a little bit of black here and mix this blue shade. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of that blue shade in right at the top. Because like we talked about, the sky would be getting darker higher up. Okay, so I've got some blue shade in there. Go ahead and mark it off. Okay, I'm gonna rinse because I need a blue tint. And I think I'm gonna make a lot more of the sky sort of a blue tint because let's face it, blue tint is just prettier. So I think I'm gonna get some white right away because I don't want to contaminate my white. Keep that nice and clean. Choose my other colors. Okay, and if I don't want to contaminate, I can always grab a different brush also to get the colors, and that'll help keep my brushes nice and clean. Okay, so we've got white and blue in here. Mix that tint. Okay, I'll start with that. And I might work on trying to get a little bit of a blend between these two blues. But first I'm just going to get this color laid down next to it. Okay, so to get some blend, I'm going to go back in with the regular blue, kind of over top of that tint while it's still wet, and just go back and forth over the top of them, trying to get them to sort of blend one into another. I'm not going to worry too much if I go over those clouds because I can put them back in. Okay, so in order to get two colors to blend, you have to use wet paint, wet on wet. So you got to work a little more quickly to get that blend effect. And if it's a little streaky, I'm okay with that because skies can be a little streaky in their colors sometimes. It looks pretty normal. Put more of that blue back in there. See, I didn't clean my brush out. I left the blue tint in there And then I got the regular blue and started going back over it. That's kind of what's helping me create this blend up in here. Okay, and then I might get some tint on my brush without cleaning out that blue to kind of further help the blending process. Okay, now I'm gonna rinse. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the blue tint I've already made, and then try and work quickly because while that's still wet, I'm gonna make my blue tint even lighter to kind of work towards another blend here. Because usually when the sky transitions colors, it looks really light in between the colors, like almost white. So I'm gonna get lighter with my blue as I go. Okay, there I am. I'm gonna get some white into my blue quick. Get that lighter tint. And kind of go over top of that. Get it to look like it blends again. And once again, I don't want to lose the edges of things like my clouds and my trees, but I also don't have to be really picky if the shape doesn't have to be perfect. If I go over it a little bit, that's okay, because I'll just cover that back over when I put in those clouds and those trees. But skies are usually back and forth. They look like the streaks in them go back and forth like this, so I want to keep that a somewhat consistent motion. Okay, for a little bit in here I want it to be even lighter white, so I'm making another tint lighter. Oh, before I forget, I'm working with my blue tint. Make sure to mark that off on there. Okay, there's another cloud there you gotta watch out for. Okay, now I gotta transition to orange somewhere in here, so I'm gonna rinse out my brush. And I'm actually, to try and work on this transition, I think I'll mix my tint of orange first. So I'm gonna kind of start with a tint. Okay, I've got a nice light tint of orange. I'll kind of lay that pretty close next to the blue. Even over top of the blue here, kind of want it to go straight across. Okay, so to get that blend in between the two, I'm just going to take some white. And notice how I still have orange on my brush. But then I actually want to rinse it out a little bit, it doesn't have to be perfect. And just get some white again. I'm going to try and use that white to blend between the colors. Okay, back to my orange tint. I think I'll fill in the rest of the sky with the orange tint, and then I'm going to take my orange and my orange shade and get in there too. It might help me to use a smaller brush right now. Remember, that is my orange tint. Okay, so I'm going to take more orange. Actually, okay, I'm going to try and get my regular orange in here now. I'm just going to make some streaks with it, kind of around the sun, around the horizon line here. Now for this part of the project, you can use colors out of the bottles. You don't have to mix all your colors anymore, like as far as the secondary colors. But this orange I did mix myself, just because I find the orange out of the bottle can be really intense, almost neon-like. And I like how this orange is a little more natural. Okay, so I got some orange in there. I gotta make sure to mark that. I also need an orange shade. Okay, so add a little bit of black. I don't need much of this as long as I've used it. So I might actually consider using the little orange shade on my windmill here, because some of the color of the sky would probably be reflecting off of this windmill. So some of that darker sky color could help. Of course I have to finish that yet, but this way I've gotten some orange shade on there. It wouldn't hurt to put maybe a little bit in the sky too, just to be sure. Okay, so that's my orange shade. Now we're going to talk about tones. I didn't put any tones in the blue or the orange yet. So a blue tone is adding the complementary color, which is orange. And it doesn't have to be a lot. We don't have to make brown here. It's just adding a little bit. So I think I'll just add a little bit and put some darker streaks up in the sky up here. Okay, so that's my blue tone. Now my orange tone would be different because that would be more orange than blue. So now I'll take some orange and add just a little bit of that blue into it. So it's just a little darker. And I can just use that very similarly to how I use the shade. Maybe just adding a little bit more. Getting a few more streaks in here. Okay, so now I got my orange tone. So I've used two colors completely. I got the tint, tone, and shade of both blue and orange. And that's where I had them designated, was for my sky.